National Jewish Women's Union Project, hosted by Rabbanit, Adena Berkowitz, together with Mrs. Rooksie David, and in conversation with Dr. Rene on Jewish unity. Here now is Rabbanit, Adena Berkowitz.
Thank you, Zev. Hi, everyone. We've been discussing, the issue based on Dr. Rene's wonderful book, Jewish Unity in an Age of Sinat Chinam. One of the things you mentioned in one of the chapters that I think is so important as a jumping off point, especially because it's something that we see in the Torah, particularly in Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, when we take a look at the relationship between Joseph, between Yosef, and his brothers. And one of the things you talk about, and Dr. Rene, you can expand on that as well as Rooksie, is you talk about that there's a fine line between group belonging and group sinat chinam. You even mention, studies in neuroscience that our brains confirm people as part, as an in-group or an out-group. And I think certainly anyone who has been through middle school can attest to that fact. But how do you see it from a Torah point of view, especially because when we take a look at the stories of the brothers and Yosef as well, did that enmity really fully dissipate? And is it something that is so ingrained that it seemed like, everybody was kind of getting along until after Yaakov died, and we know in the Torah the brothers seemed anxious what would happen to them. But how do you define that thin line between group belonging and group sinat chinam, and what can we do about it? So I'll start with Dr. Rene.
Group sinat chinam is completely different from the sinat chinam we've been talking about, which is individual to individual. So the story of Joseph starts with individuals, and many people through a lifetime, they know similar stories, especially when a husband is married to two wives and children are from different wives, etc. It is understandable. Okay. The other point you brought up is that individual sinat chinam, okay, even though they were a group of brothers, okay, they were after one person who was perceived clearly as a threat. And when the father died and they had lived all together 17 years and Joseph had sustained them, etc., they made up a story to obtain more of his forgiveness. In other words, they were haunted by what they had done and how it had been misplaced, since Joseph at the end did them only good for the bad they did to him. So Joseph, it had explained to them at length, and he repeated the same explanation. Joseph explained to them that in jail for 10 years, he realized that it was God. Okay. And I know that that's difficult, that sometimes, it's only the person who receives the hate who can say that. The brothers who are haters cannot say this is from God. Okay? They cannot. We're responsible. That's what the whole topic is about. We cannot say that. But the recipient can say it, and it's borne out by all our traditions, Sefer HaChinuch, etc., says that when you, as an individual, are the subject of insult that provokes in you hatred-like feelings, okay, you can, not only you can, you should, depending on your relationship with Hashem, attribute it to Hashem bringing this your way to help you sometime in the future. Now, that requires a close relationship with Hashem. Yosef didn't have that at the beginning. But after 10 years, he had it. He had it almost. When he didn't have it completely, and he asked, the cupbearer to save him, Rashi says, Hashem punished him again. Okay, why? Because he needed to have complete faith in Hashem, such that 2 years later, exactly 2 years, and he's that same day when he went to Pharaoh, he says, Bil Adai, it's not me. There's nothing of me. Hashem Yane et Shalom Pharaoh. So he realized that his whole destiny was in Hashem. So he was done. Now, when the family came 17 years and they lived together, he was done. That's why when the brothers came to him after Jacob died, Joseph repeated the same thing. He says, it's not you, I've been telling you, it's Hashem. Because Joseph, see, that's the main teaching of the first part of the book, is that when you are subject to any kind of insult from another Jew, okay, you hold all the cards. Ignore the other Jew. It's between you and Hashem. And Joseph, it took him time. He did that. Once he did that, he was done. He was done. So when the brothers came, so they were moved by their guilt about what they had done, because history had shown them wrong. That is all individual sinat chinam. But the big question about group sinat chinam is that group sinat chinam is one log or 10 times or more dangerous to the Jewish people than individual sinat chinam. But unfortunately, I haven't found a lot of documentation. Even the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa, which brought the destruction of the temple and the nation, even that starts with individuals, the wrong invitee, okay? And that should not mislead us to focus only on individual sinat chinam. So Rebbitzin, I welcome your question about group sinat chinam. Group sinat chinam is completely different. The genesis is different. The consequences are different. Here's why. Group sinat chinam is even more treacherous than individual sinat chinam. Individual sinat chinam is so obvious that people don't even think they have it. They're so convinced because they have all the echo of the insult they received. In group sinat chinam, there is no insult. There is nothing. It's just that human beings do better when they live in groups. So Abraham Maslow, who classified human needs, found that group belonging comes right after the indispensable needs of eating, drinking, and safety, survival. Then comes group belonging. Okay? So all humans, all societies, all religions, they divide themselves in groups. The problem with groups is that they are live organisms. They have an identity. They impose their identity on their members, and they compete. And the tragedy is that we thought that group competed for resources. Like in countries in the Middle Ages, various groups in tribes in Africa, they compete for territory, for resources. No, what we learned, in the Western world, for sure, and religions also have it, is that groups compete for ideological reasons. And ideology becomes your identity because your group is your identity. Okay, so the trap of group sinat chinam is when a Jew, group Sinat Chinam is an issue for Jews. Why? Because we have allegiance to Hashem. It begins there and it ends there. And we have allegiance to Jews. Now you might say, oh, hold on. Why did Hashem design our history starting with Jacob with tribes? Because when the Jews left Egypt and they walked in the desert, we are not given a reason why they're divided in tribes coming from 4 mothers. Are we? Are we given a reason? I'm asking Rebbitzin.
No,
I don't want this to be
yeah,
a monologue.
yeah.
Right? You agree? We're not.
Yeah.
I would give
No.
a reason.
No,
It has escaped me. Okay, so now we have to fabricate a reason. So now I want to submit this for discussion with you, all of you. Okay, is that the reason we were aligned, exactly in an arrangement in the desert around the Mishkan that traveled, okay, is because part of our mission is to be tribal and to overcome tribalism. That is our mission. Why? Because we recognize Hashem on top of all the tribes. And we have to never fall in the trap of giving more allegiance to our tribe than to Hashem. So Hashem wanted, through the book of Shemot and on, and then we see in our history, okay, same thing, after the death of King Solomon, his 2 sons divided themselves into 10 tribes and 2 tribes, okay? So the challenge of group Sinat Chinam, of tribalism, tribalism is the pathological version of group Sinat Chinam, which is physiological. Of group belonging, excuse me. Group belonging is normal. It's physiological. We do belong to groups. We can belong to groups, and we need to belong to groups. That's normal. It becomes pathological when you take a sample of a member of a group, you send it to the lab, and they read the pathology, and they find that you're tribal. Then you can destroy our whole people. So that's my answer to why we were arranged as tribes, okay? Because we were supposed to teach the world that, yes, you cannot not be part of a people is not a tribe. You could have said, oh, but you belong to the Jewish people. What else do you need? No. People don't relate to belonging to a people of millions of individuals. They relate to their tribe.
So using that, Rooksie, let me ask you, you've had so many years as an educator, and I think across, different groups, people, Jews from different backgrounds. What do you see from your perspective of this group identity versus how to avoid that transferring into dislike of the other? One of the things that Dr. Rene mentions in his book is a quote from Dr. Robert Sternberg, who's a psychologist, who said, hate arises from stories. People hold on to their stories. They hold on to their hurts. That's what we see in the Torah. Everybody is holding on to those hurts. So I turn it to you from a practical point of view, as an educator all these years, how do you deal with it?
So I love that question. And, this group identity, this group Sinat Chinam, that's one aspect of tribalism. We, as a group, define ourselves as opposed to other groups. However, it works in the positive reverse in that the group sticks up for its members. So if you think of the Marines as a brotherhood, right? Any Marine anywhere who never served together but meets somewhere and says, I'm a Marine, you're a Marine, there's an automatic brotherhood. So we want to promote the absence of Sinat Chinam would be promoting the brotherhood, sisterhood of Jews everywhere, every place, even though we look different, smell different, think different, have different ideologies, even within Judaism. So it starts at the microcosm, people, individuals, Joseph and his brothers, Cain and Abel. And then it spreads out to the macro is the group, this group as opposed to this group. Now, a lot of this we pick up subconsciously and unconsciously. So in my experience of interacting with a variety of Jews from all stripes of life, I will sometimes people will say to me, even though they're dear friends, their religious observance is very different than mine. And once in a while they'll slip and say, well, you people.
Mm.
And I'm like,
Oh, the you people.
You people. I said, we're us. We're not you and me. We're us. Like, what do you mean, you people? So it's an interesting thing, and I think that's born out of a lot of experience of what society defines as different groups and etc. So even in schools, you referenced anyone who went through middle school knows who's in and who's out. Okay, so I've been an educator in elementary school, and I will definitely speak to the students one-on-one and in groups as to it's very important in our school that we speak respectfully and kindly and helpfully to everyone. So a lot of that messaging and a lot of that educating really has to start, when the child is a babe in arms or sitting on the parent's lap, and that has to be the message. And unfortunately, that's not the message, because groups are good because we belong and we have identity. Groups are good because the group will take care of us and shelter us and defend us to the end. And as Dr. Rene said, the structure of the tribes, and when Jacob gave the blessing to the tribes, he picked out an attribute of each tribe that was unique to that tribe. And that's 12 different attributes that make up the spoke of the Jewish people. So to be a whole people, to be echad, to be one, we need to be multifaceted. And some people are going to bring that energy to the tribe, Yisachar and Zvulun, the one who learns, the one who supports, the one who lives in the place of wealth, the one who travels in the seas, the one who is the kingship, the one who does the priesthood. I mean, we need that, and one person cannot be all those things, nor should they be all those things.
So in trying to sort of, I would say, look at people's feelings and how it devolves. One of the things that, we always talk about is trying to develop among the children, even among adults, a feeling of being empathic. Not merely sympathetic. You can be sympathetic, but when you're empathic, it's rather more that, like, but for the grace of God, I feel like I could almost be in that situation. And therefore, when we take a look at the Torah, where we see these family conflicts, the question is one of people developing a sense of having charata, of having regret for how they act before, not just the recriminations, and not just getting over those recriminations, but how to take regret one might have and be able to transform it into creating then the reconciliation, especially among the group, because it's not just that we are fighting with people outside the group. It's the fighting and it's the conflicts within the group, and often, and we see that in the Torah, we saw that we see it in Bereshit with the brothers, that it could just stop everybody in the tracks, because it's a kind of like a shoulda, woulda, coulda. I told you so. You shouldn't have done this. It's all your fault. So it's those recriminations, as opposed to taking the regret, I would say, and being able to transform it into reconciliation that can then get you out of this cycle. So I'll turn that back to Rooksie. Okay, Dr. Rene is raising his hand. So let's take it to Dr. Rene, and then Rooksie, especially you as an educator, with your feet planted firmly in the ground, how you deal with it, Dr. Rene.
I just want to address one point. How to get that charata. That's very important to communicate to children. I'm addressing this to Rooksie. Is that what is the sin? The group belonging turns automatically to group sinat chinam. Why? Because it is impersonal. See, you have ill feelings for individuals you have never met. The group has 300,000 whatever members of religious or whatever orientation group. Okay, you haven't met all these Jews. When you talk about Orthodox Jews or Haredi or conservative or Reform, you're talking about millions of individuals. So when you have an attitude and you accept it, okay, that you speak about millions of Jews at once, you completely destroy their individuality. So what happens is you end up having ill feelings to any member of the group, not only because you have never met them, okay, but also just because of their belonging to that group. That's antithetical to anything in Judaism. It destroys everything more than individual groups in Atrinam, more than family strife. I would like you both, please, to react to that.
All right, sure. Rooksie?
That is, I mean, that's what we're trying to solve with Jewish unity, right? To dismiss swaths of the Jewish people because they're dressed different, pray different, believe something different. I mean, when I even say that, that sounds so ludicrous just to say those words, right? And we tend to do it all the time. We tend to do it. And imagine if we all joined our resources, because we all have common values. We have the values of the Torah as our basis. And if we all joined together and agreed on the things we agree on, and then said, okay, so then let's work for this thing. I mean, we saw this, a great coming together after October 7th, and I'm very sorry that is what took for us to come together. But the needs were very clear. We have hostages that are still not released. We are praying and hopefully campaigning for them. We have Jewish soldiers putting their lives on the line, and we have the protection of the land of Israel and the people, our brothers and sisters who are living there. That's clear to all of us. We can all get behind that. How many other things could we all get behind? Education, Jewish continuity, combating anti-Semitism on campuses, right? So what if we did that and we didn't sit and split hairs about the particulars that we feel differently about? And because of group dynamics, there's some protection, preservation, being like-minded within a group, and then there's the threat of another group being different or thinking different than us. And this is biological wiring, as Dr. Rene points out in his book, but it's also something that the Torah requires us to override, because that's a physical response, and we're supposed to respond from a soul place. And the soul is what mediates our physical desires and our physical proclivities. And if we respond from that higher level, I think we could eliminate Sinat Chinam.
So, what I was thinking, because it's something that comes out in the book, and that is that in essence, the idea that all of us really are in a category Baalei Teshuvah, that it's not just someone who, didn't come from an observant home and then all of a sudden becomes quote unquote frum. It's that we all have deficiencies, so that therefore every day we have really the ability to work on really like as a tikkun on our own midot to be better. It's not just about that, like we're set. That's one of the things I think about even within Orthodoxy, that when people ask me, how do I define myself? And I've gone through like different permutations of how to do that. But one thing maybe we could all agree on, when people ask that question, to say what my denomination is observant aspirational Judaism, because it means like Malim B'Kodesh, that you can't just rest on your laurels, no matter how firm you think you are, or you are. And I don't dismiss the commitment. It's not easy. I think we kind of do a disservice, and we sort of sell it that it's like just about the beauty of Shabbos, and you're making challah and lighting candles and kiddush, and you have 25 hours away from phone. But there's a lot of prep work. There's a lot going on during the day. And even though that it's a commandment to rest, right? There's a lot of stuff that is, you might say, isn't really, restful in a modern definition. So that's something I'm wondering about. Dr. Rene?
Yeah, Rebbetzin, what you just said, we have to tape it and rehear it, because it explains exactly, in my humble opinion, why Sinat Chinam has lasted 19 centuries and has been so intractable. Because we did exactly what you said we're doing, and we should stop doing it. To be complacent, to tell Hashem, thank you for Shabbat. Thank you for everything. Thank you, and we don't look further and not realize that we are constantly sinning by harboring in our heart these negative thoughts about his people. So please, let's rehear them, and I hope we can continue the group Sinat Chinam, because it's very important in America and in Israel.
Well,
I'm
Rooksie,
always,
go ahead. I think, I don't know how much time we have left, but I think, Rooksie, we have 2 minutes. You've got the final word on this for this week. Go ahead.
I'm always very hopeful and very optimistic about people's ability to repair, about people's ability to grow. There's a Breslov saying, if you believe in your ability to destroy, you have to equally believe in your ability to build and to repair. A lot of it is a person, again, overcoming their ego, and also being willing to be wrong. It's okay. I sort of have like an arrogant thing about being wrong. I know if I admit I was wrong, it actually makes me look humble. So it's like an arrogant, humble kind of thing. So, it's a psychological tool. But if we, this Carol Dweck's research, growth mindset, fixed mindset, this book by Adam Grant, Think Again, people who are successful in general are people who are willing to see that their thinking was erroneous and are willing to switch gears. Okay? This could be in Gemara learning, this could be in halachic decisions, it is across the board. So to be a fully developed human being is to have the ability to say, I can change my thinking, or I thought this way, but now that I have this new set of information, I've now reevaluated and I have changed my mindset. And I think that's one of the higher level human faculties and human activities that we can engage in. So I'm very optimistic for this project and for people to get past what we've been dealing with for 19 centuries.
So I think on that note, that's a great way to end, and that we have to move from that sense and that feeling of complacency. We always have to feel motivated, not just to come closer to Hashem, but to come closer to those within our group, and those that right now we may perceive as like outside the group, and how to get them in, so that through our love and our connection, we really can build a better Jewish world and a better world. So thank you both of you for, I think, a really dynamic conversation that I look forward to continuing.
Okay.
Have a rest of a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.